Hey guys, welcome to Noob Hall. This is our second episode because we're back by a popular demand, so that's exciting. I'm your host today, Rejection 01. After the bloodbath between me and Duke, I emerged victorious, so I'm the new overlord for this week. We are joined by the still alive Duke somehow,
Hey.
by Cal Shadowstep.
Evening.
So today we have a very exciting docket for all of the new players out here. We were in a Discord channel earlier today, me and Cal, and we were trying to explain a few of the more intricate stratagems within this game to a new player who is unfamiliar with the terms and is unfamiliar with the way card games generally operate. And a few other players who are more familiar with card games, but not necessarily as familiar with the meta of this game. And a very important concept kept coming up. It was one of value of cards. The value of cards is a very important thing that everybody needs to understand very quickly in this game if they want to do well with deck building or simple plays as well. A lot of the card choices when you're building a deck are going to make the difference between winning and losing right off the first couple turns, just because whoever's deck is more tuned and whoever's deck is more of a consistent game plan is probably going to win that game, depending on counters and whatnot. So the first thing we're going to discuss is how to build a decent budget deck, because a lot of new players come in and they either use one of the pre-built decks or they make what they think is a wonderful deck because the cards in it are pretty, and then it crashes and burns and fails, and then they hate the game because they don't know why they can't win. So we're going to try to fix that.
We're gonna try. The key word here is try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, through the magic of editing, we should be looking at a budget aggro crusader at the moment.
Yeah, magical editing. Cal,
Okay.
you're the aggro guru here.
1 second. 1 second. 1
We're
second.
waiting seconds.
And I will cut this out while I go ahead and put it up.
Seconds are being waited. We're waiting on the seconds.
Okay, go for it.
All right, aggro guru Cal, explain.
So the most important thing with building an aggro deck is to pay attention to how many cards you're playing at each point on the curve. And by curve, I mean that little graph at the top of the screen that shows you how many of each mana cost you have, or magic cost, I suppose. So you cannot afford to waste Magica as an aggro deck. You need to be as sleek and efficient as possible. So your highest density of cards will be your 2 and 3 drops. There are different schools of thought on whether 1 drops are playable, and I'll probably go into that at some point in the future. But for the moment, we'll focus on your early game. So as you can see, we have a nice tidy 15 2-drops, which is a little bit on the low average of what I like. I like usually 16 to 18. And you can see they all relatively do the same thing. Like, you have a large number of things that cost 2 and usually do on average 3 damage. Like, sometimes you'll flip your initiate, it'll do 4, sometimes you'll get it for 2, it averages out. Your Alex will sometimes get it for 2, sometimes for 5. It's usually a good day if you're getting it for 5. You have captains for charges, so you can usually assume that he's going to put at least 3 damage in himself. Do we have any more 2-drops? We have Fifth Legion. Fifth Legion's kind of a budget replacement for what should probably be Rift Danes. Obviously, like, if we're talking in terms of 3 damage for 2 power for 2 mana being efficient, then obviously 4 damage for 2 mana is fantastic, and he's an epic, so you should definitely get those.
And what does a Riftane do again?
Riftane is a 2 mana 4/2 with breakthrough.
Okay. And that's a multicolored card, right?
Yeah, it's the Crusader multi epic.
Alright, got it.
So moving on to 3-drops, you have your charges, which Raiding Party counts as a charge. Battle Rage Orc, obviously. These are going to be your burst. You often won't play these on turn 3 if you can avoid it. You're saving for play multiple spells later in the game. You have your Mighty Allies and your Mortal Gatekeepers, which are, again, more power than they are mana cost, which is one of the core concepts of being an aggressive deck. You need to be more efficient than the mana that you're putting into it. What else have we got here? Crusader's Assault is a difficult card to play, and even as a budget new player, will take some getting used to. The incentive is to just throw it at whatever and draw cards, but this is not worth it if you're going behind on board, because you need to be able to put pressure on. And then rounding out the top end of the curve, you have Ash Berserkers, which give you a little bit of reach and really have to be dealt with. You don't usually want to play them unless you have a way to turn them on straight away. So if you have a outpost or if you have a captain in play at the same time. Candlehearth is a really just impressive meaty guy. Like, a 2/5 is huge. A 2/5 with charge and guard that protects your captains is ridiculous. Vigilante, you will never, ever begin the turn with. She is literally a 5-mana lightning bolt. And Jarl is a bad card, but a necessity. These should definitely be either Sharp-Eyed Ashcans or Ulfric's Housecarl, for exactly the reason that we're saying. Like, it's a 4-power creature for 6 mana. It just doesn't impact the board. Like, it gets bolted by everything, especially bolts.
So, what would be the cards that you would replace for higher cost cards, so people have an idea of what is making this a budget list and not just an actual list?
You can easily play this with 0 legendaries. You could play Relentless Rain instead of Fire Imp. Depending on how you feel, you probably either want to play 6 1-drops or 0. So you can take them out. You can take out Battle Rage Orcs. You can take out Triumphant Jarls. And the things you're looking at putting in are the multicolor cards, especially. So Rift Thane, Ulfric's Housecarl, and Withered Hand Cultist is the other very important 3-drop because it makes you survive Ice Storm.
Yes, it also makes Ice Storm impractical.
It does. But realistically, Crusader is one of the cheapest decks to build because you don't need any legendaries. You only need a couple of epics. You could do with some silences.
How expensive is this one? Because I do see that it's 53 instead of being the regular 50. Isn't it? No.
Is it?
No,
I'm
it's
just-
not. It is
I-
50.
Is it? It says
We are-
47
No, it's 50.
red and then 6 yellow.
Yes, but 3 of them are both.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're right. I apologize.
Noob Hall.
There's a
we can cut that
reason
bit out.
why that's the game. No, I'll put that in. It has to be. I'll cut this out though, or maybe I won't. I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
It
Behind
is
the
an important
scenes are
thing to notice. You can't run too many yellow cards because Mighty Ally. If
Right.
you ever find yourself, if you're only good at maths and you ever find yourself dipping below about 85% to hit a red card, you're playing too many yellow cards.
Okay.
And playing 100% red is usually the best, assuming some of them are multicolor.
So what's the difference in in effectiveness between this and a mono red deck?
There is no reason to be mono red.
No, or no reason ever.
No, the multicolor cards are good.
Oh, okay, got it.
They're like phenomenal. Rift Thane's probably the best 2-drop in the game.
Except there's
So,
no
like-
Riftain in this one.
Well, because it's an epic and we're doing budget.
Oh, true. We're trying to stay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I spent all my money, so that's why I'm poor.
Okay, so here we have a budget mid-range sorcerer. Sorcerer is one of the best classes to do a budget mid-range list in because blue has incredibly powerful cards, and purple has incredibly overstated cards. They're just some of the most obscene. Or like Mammoth is stupid. So I am the control player, so I look at cards in terms of value over a long period of time rather than specifically curve, although this deck does seem to have quite a decent curve to it as well. So the way I build a deck is I start at the end and I work my way back to the beginning. So the first things I added to this deck were Lightning Bolts, Corrupted Shades, Mammoths, Spirits. I put in Mammoths. Black Worm Necromancer is a very powerful endgame card, so definitely had to put that in first. What this deck is planning to do is just put in giant threat turn after turn, overstatted monster every turn, beat your opponent down with it, and then you'll have Royal Sage and Necromancer to activate, which are going to be just snowball mechanics. They're win more cards, but mid-range needs that because by the time it's falling off, if you win more, you're beating the controls that are getting to the same point in the game as you. The only issue this deck might have would be against aggro, so you would want to put in cards that would stop that. Dark Guardians, Wardcrafters, Harpies, and Barrowstalkers are very good against aggro or in the mirror matchup. For reach, to get your opponent to that all-important life total of less than yours to activate Royal Sages and Black Robe Necromancers, you have Camlorn Heroes, you have Satanine Courier, cannot believe I said that right on the first try, and Lightning Bolts just as like extra reach to get them down. Cal, you want to talk about the curve of the deck?
So this is, looking at the graph here is deceptive because a lot of the things, although it looks on face like it has 18 2-drops, a lot of these are not turn 2 plays. Things like the Courier can be, but they're better used to make value trades. The Harpies are obviously going to be tempo plays. You're seeing that the deck is a mixture of removal to deal with early threats while you're setting yours up, and a pile of big things that are very difficult to remove. So this gives you this idea that you're curving somewhere in between aggro and control, rather than being, you're not trying to get your opponent dead as quickly as possible. If you're playing an aggro mirror, you're the control deck. If you're playing the control deck, you're the aggro deck. Like, you can play either role, not necessarily as efficiently as either of the others, but you have, as a mid-range deck, the tools to deal with any game in a balanced fashion.
Yes. So what this, as a budget list, and we'll get to Duke in a moment, as the budget list for this is also an incredibly cheap deck to play. I think I tried to limit myself to 2 epics when I was building it. So I put 2 Corrupted Shades just because they're massive and terrifying. But it's, what is this, 48 commons and rares? Easy?
Yeah.
And I would say that they all are, it's pretty close to the original list. You can look at Justin Larson for the original list.
Do you want to tell us some of the upgrades you would make to this reg?
Yes. So I was trying to be as budget as possible here. I had to stop that for the control lists, but for this one, I limited myself to no expansions, and I limited myself to no legendaries, just 2 epics. What you would add in here would be Bleak Coast Trolls, which are from one of the Forgotten Hero collections. You would also add in High King Emmerich if you could. You would add in another Corrupted Shade. You would add 3 Daggerfall Mages instead of probably Sedyanin Courier.
Probably top out Ancano, right?
We would want Ancano. You can afford him for 500 gold, so he's not an incredibly expensive legendary. He's probably one of the easiest to get, considering his deck is the first one you should go for. If you're new, you buy the Ancanos, whatever the hell that was called. Huh?
What? I didn't say anything about Brynjolf.
What? Brynjolf?
Brynjolf's the second one. Brynjolf's the second one you go for. God damn it. Well, actually, no, Parthenax was probably the second one. Shut up. But you top out with Ancano. Just for a little more reach. You might want to add in yeah, you would just add in Daggerfalls, a 3rd Corrupted Shade, High King Emmerich, Bleak Coast Trolls.
High King or High King?
Emmerich.
Okay, there you go.
Emmerich on the throne, not Emmerich up a mountain.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I some people might get that confused. They're like, wait, High King Emmerich's an actual card? No.
I suppose the last thing I'd say about this list is in my opinion, you get to play the strongest of the dual color rares. Sorcerer's Negation is not a fair and balanced card.
No, it's retarded. It's a horrifying monstrosity, and I don't know who thought that was okay. What you have to understand is you do not have the ways to end the game with High King Emmerich and Encano, and you don't have the huge power of Bleak Coast Trolls, and you don't have the stain power that tomes give you, and you don't have like silences and siege catapults and stuff. So you need to end games. That's something budget decks need to do. They need to be able to end a fucking game before you get blown out by your opponent who's running better cards than you. So if you can at any point get your opponent to lower life than you and then drop down a Black Room Necromancer and pull back a Mammoth or pull back a Royal Sage even, that's a good way to end a game because that is an obscene amount of value.
And this is a very aggro-friendly deck, I feel, just because of the Royal Sage and the Blackworm Necromancer on there.
Yeah.
Both of them can
They
easily,
kind of
turn the tide, or not even turn the tide, but give you the win if you drop them at the right time.
All right, so now we are on the wonderful oxymoron of budget fucking control. I am not happy with this list. I'm not proud of this list. I don't like this list, but it has to happen. So control is the most expensive archetype in the game. I truly do not believe budget control works because you need to have a certain amount of top end. You need to have a certain amount of expensive removal. So for this, I am allowing legendaries you can get with gold, the expansion, the expansion cards like Dark Brotherhood or Clockwork City or what have you. What are they? Forgotten Hero collections, just to try to make this list even remotely playable. So the thing with control is you want to have, you don't really care about mana efficiency, you care about value efficiency. You want each one of your cards to be worth 1 or 2 at minimum of your opponent's cards. You want to try to, if you're playing something for 3 mana, you want it to answer something that costs 3 or more mana from your opponent. So if the opponent plays a 2-drop and you answer it with a 1-drop, but it's a 1-for-1 and you float 2 mana on turn 3, that's still a good thing. Like you still win. If they play Goblin Skulk on turn 2 and then it's your turn 3 and you firebolt it, you're still up. So mana efficiency isn't as important in this. So you'll notice, and Duke, before he left, did comment that there are a lot of 1-ofs in this list. And that's true. You need a plethora of answers in a control deck. You're not looking for redundancy, you're looking to be able to answer everything. And there are a lot of different situations that arise in a game. So you'll notice 1 Execute, 1 Grizzly Gourmet, and 1 Aerostorm. You might say they all do the same thing. That's not really true. They all do slightly different things. Grizzly Gourmet is a 3-drop that answers something with 2 or less attack. And it puts a small body on the board. Execute is a 1-mana spell, doesn't put anything on the board, but does answer something with 2 health or less. And then Aerostorm is a 3-drop spell that answers a lane of 2 health or less minions. So it's all very slight changes, but I do think, especially in a budget list, you're going to need enough answers to answer everything. You'll run 3 Piercing Javelins and 3 Cast into Times. That is for redundancy for hard removal. Yellow has some of the only and easily the best hard removal in the game. Purple is second, I think, with Mummifies and whatnot, but that is by far better. So Arrest is just saying I don't have any of the other really good cards. I have Wrath, I don't have, I'm not playing Tribunal, so I don't have Edict of Azura, so I'll play Arrest just to not only immediately answer my opponent's big threats, I don't let them get the last gasp effects, and I don't let them pull it from their graveyard again, or shuffle it with Uprising, or Knights Remember, any of that. Reverberating Strike and Firebolt, again, slightly different. Lightning Bolt, again, slightly different. But they all do enough of a similar thing to answer very specific situations. Another important thing with control is you don't want to die. You really like that's kind of your win condition. Not dying is your win condition. So putting in a lot of guards or ways to heal are going to be the way you win this. Hence having Hive Defenders and Mon Moth Castellians and Phalanx Exemplars. That's just how you stay alive. Crassus's Favors in there. A Slay Heal, we'll get to why that's in there really in a moment. You also need a win condition, which is the way a control deck closes out is usually by an obscene top end. I'm probably the greediest player you'll ever see in this game. I don't even think that's an exaggeration. So my top end usually consists of 12 or more 7-drop pluses. Here we have a measly 2 because Arrest doesn't really count. Legionnaire Prefect doesn't really count. So you have Encano and Parthenax. Both you can get with gold. Encano is incredible value, amazing damage, all around, probably one of my favorite cards in the game. Parthenax is theoretically limitless value. If you get Soul Tear off of Parthenax, you can just Soul Tear back Parthenax and just infinite dragons. It's really, really good. If you don't, you still get 3 cards off it, so it's a 9-mana card that draws you 3 cards, all of which you can play immediately, which just puts so much pressure and so much danger for your opponent on the board.
I mean, if you're a new player, you should already be familiar with Parthenax. He stepped onto the stage and became the de facto top end for Control decks, and that has never really gone away.
Yes.
There is nothing better to be doing on 12 mana, as much as we can argue that Sothersil is competing.
Sothersil's probably better, honestly.
You think?
Well, Parthenax is a potential win condition, definitely a good play. Sothersil is absolutely a win condition where if you don't answer to, you can shackle Parthenax.
Sure.
So
talk to me about Chanter of Akatosh.
Okay, so 2 cards is not enough of a win condition. You can't just expect to win every game with Encano Parthenax. So this deck, now I have tried to make budget control decks before. I used to try to make them all the time. I always come back to Mage because they're the only ones that have decent cheap removal. And every list I ever make always comes back to Chanter of Akatosh because I do think it is required for cheap control.
So,
however,
to start with, tell me the text on Chanter of Akatosh.
It says, after you play an action, summon a random creature from your deck with the same cost. So what that does is you play that not on turn 5. You play it way after turn 5, and you play it with a spell, and it will pull a creature from your deck. So you'll play a 5-mana 1/2, you'll play, say, Piercing Javelin, and it will summon a Phalanx Exemplar next to it. If it goes unanswered, which if you're playing a control deck, you kind of hope that you grind your opponent down so they can't answer all of your stuff. You play a bunch of spells next turn. You could play Arrest to summon Legion Prefect and buff your entire board. You play Crassus's Favor to summon 2 1-drops and then another 2-drops. You get a Wardcrafter. You play a Firebolt. You get Solitude Servant.
Solitude Stalwart.
Wow, I can talk words. You play Lightning Bolt, and it gives you, say, Black Dragon. That's crazy value. That's really, really good. So the idea here is to play Chanter, play a spell, and the next turn play Arrest, buff the whole board, and just hope to God that's enough. It's never enough, but it's the best chance you have if you don't have Mirax and Dawn's Wrath and Odaving and Sothersil and all the late game you really need.
Speaking of which, unlike the previous deck lists, I'm not going to make Reg go through the hour it might take to tell you all the ways to upgrade this.
Oh God, I'll give you a couple.
As a new player, you should already be using Legends Decks as a resource. If you go into there and look up Rejection, you will see his support mage and why there is no way in hell that we can possibly talk about upgrading this deck.
Yeah, that's probably the cheapest control deck I own, and it's 22,000 shards.
Yeah.
So rejection is actually, and his decks are actually the reason why people think this game is not fully free to play. It's definitely pay to win. Definitely pay to win.
I
So
mean, my
I,
way is
I had a question. Quick question.
okay.
Actually, more of an observation and then no question. Yeah. Okay. So I feel like this deck, not just with all the options, but it's a little bit faster than most of your decks. It's definitely not meant to like last like what, like an hour?
Yeah.
Right.
So the major difference between budget control and control is that control can take honestly half an hour and be comfortable with it because it has the top end to survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Budget does not. So the Cal said something to me a while ago that stuck with me, and which is why I think this deck could even win one game. And that is aggro tries to play its biggest threats on turns 1 through 4. Mid range tries to play its biggest threats on turns 5 through 8, and then control plays its biggest threats on turns 9 and up. So what this deck does is its major threats are going to be starting on turn 8 with Ancano, 10 with Chanter and 5-drop, and 12 with Parthenax. So it is looking to close the game out by turn 13, and if you haven't, you're probably going to lose.
I also feel like this list is a lot of fun. A lot more fun than most control decks would be if you're not that. If you're just getting started with control, this is a lot of fun because by the time that you can drop Chanter of Akatosh and start doing all the crazy stuff that you can do with this deck,
Chandra is a fun card.
yeah, that's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
yeah.
It's a fun card.
Uh,
It's also a very annoying card when you're on the other side of the board. But I digress. Um,
I will make the same observation about Chandra as I will from Ash Berserker. If you can avoid it, you really don't want to play it unless you can turn it on right away.
yep,
Yes.
yep. It's Chanter is one of those cards that only has value if you play it later than the actual magic cost of it.
Yes, if you play it on turn 5 and hope it lives, better be 2 turns from dying.
Yep. So, quick observation here. This is very important. As you can see, budget. There's a reason why the budget mage deck is the one that has no double color, um, double color creatures or cards because I think the multicolor cards for mage are very expensive, right?
Well, they are Mage's Trick, that useless 6-drop 3/3 that I don't even remember the name. And
Skywatch Vindicator, I think.
oh no,
No, that
thing is,
that was a monthly reward, so it doesn't really particularly count here.
Oh, really?
it's evil. That card
Yeah.
is evil. It's just disgustingly bad. And Aaron, which is one of the better legendaries in the entire game, but it's a legendary you have to craft, so I wasn't gonna put it in this.
So yeah, so that was good. I like I said, this is a really fun list. I can see myself playing this and not, falling asleep, making myself a shake, having a 3-course meal, and then coming back in. I'm still only halfway done with the game with control. So kudos on that one. That was good.
Yay.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is something we got asked in our Discord server, which you can find a link to somewhere. Which I should mention is something we're looking for. Like we're looking for viewer feedback. If there's things you want us to talk about, then do let us know. The one that came up earlier was how to climb ladder quickly, and me and Rejection sort of went away and talked about this for a while, and in a very strange twist of fate, came to very similar conclusions. It doesn't happen often. Mostly because the way to do it is really not in his wheelhouse.
No.
Like if you spend your days spending a glorious half an hour match playing a control mirror, you will go up and down and not go anywhere. It's just not efficient enough. Realistically, what you need to be doing is playing as many games as possible with a decent deck that if you're new to the game, you may or may not have designed, and if you're new to the game, you probably shouldn't have done yourself if you want to climb quickly. I'm gonna let Rejection talk about sort of the ins and outs of why that is. But if you're a budget player, if you're looking to climb ladder, you need to be hitting people very hard and very, very fast.
But not actually in real life. Not in real life. Do not hit people in real life and be like, "Am I legends yet?" That's not how it works. I tried it.
Or do.
I
If
tried
you
it.
hit people hard enough and it's in the right situation, you are a legend.
If you
Also, if you
find
have the capability to reach through the screen, beat your opponent up, and then make them rope and lose the game, that is a valid tactic.
if you actually have the ability to choke somebody out through the game, drop me a message. I have a couple of usernames I want you to look up.
First one is mine.
First one's rejection 01. So to go into a little bit of in depth about climbing from rank 12 to rank 6, which seems to be a lot of the place that a lot of newer players get stuck in. It's basically because for without saying too much, it's a mess down there. It's on. There's a reason why it's called the sewers. It's a mess. Uh, Realistically, you're gonna see a lot of decks that should not work. You're gonna have a lot of luck, and you're also gonna see a lot of people that are just playing stuff that's literally meant to keep other people down there, or it's just meant to win, but they're just stuck in one rank for no reason. The best advice, the number one advice that I have for anybody getting out of rank 12 and trying to get into, rank 6 or above is literally just put in the time. Play, I don't know, 4 or 5 games every day. If you're honestly that passionate about the game and you're not playing for fun and you honestly want to get out of go more towards the skill oriented games as opposed to just, you know, throw something at the wall and hope that it sticks. You always want to just give it time. 4 or 5 games easily every single day can get you up there. I want to say, even if you're playing a truly, honestly bad deck, you can easily go up 2, 3 ranks if you just stay consistent enough with the amount of games that you play. If you're playing a good deck, which you should be. So the other number two, always go and use somebody else's deck. Do not try to deck build if you're going from rank 12 to rank 6, especially if you're brand freaking new, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes, you're going to get really frustrated, and then that's going to take away from the fun of the game, and then you're going to go on your favorite social media and you're going to say how much this game sucks, when in reality it's really just about being humble and taking the advice that other people give you by making their decks. Legends. Um, what was that link again, Cal? Because I don't have it.
Which one? Legends dash decks. I think is where most people
Legends.
post deck
Right.
lists.
Legends dash decks. Great place. If you're a Reddit user, Reddit has a lot of people that go in and do decks. They put them up now and then. The other one, if you watch YouTube videos, pause that video right before people like Justin Larson, Warriors, Dragon Blade, Tamer, all before those guys get into like the explanation of how the deck works. Literally, just copy that deck. All right, watch them play 2, 3 games with it, and then try and emulate that as much as possible. Because remember, everybody else is going to be either doing the same thing or they're not going to be doing the same thing. So if they're not doing the same thing, you can easily roll them with a well-made deck. Use the budget decks that we showed you at the beginning of this video, so that later on down the line, you have something cheap, but you also have something that works a lot. Like these two guys, Cal and Rejection, they're not good just because one day they got in the game and they decided, well, I'm going to be amazing at this game. They literally study the game. They play easily like 5 hours every single day.
We were on call for, I think, 8 hours yesterday.
Okay, so they play between 5 to 8 hours a day of the game. All right, these guys are like passionate. So anytime that you get someone that passionate and you can copy whatever it is that it's getting them there, you always want to emulate this. So rule one, persistence. Rule number two is emulate. So you want to persistently emulate other people until you get to where you want to be. This is really only 3 rules to it. It's just persistence, emulation, and the third one is Usually people will say, "Oh, just have fun. Whatever happens, happens." No, like my third rule is always the same one. If you lose, if you find yourself losing a lot, okay, be aware that just because one deck is supposedly quote unquote good doesn't mean that you're good at playing it. Maybe it's just not your style. For example, Cal and I want to say Cal more than myself because I'm more of a variety player. I'll play whatever, but Cal is a very aggro oriented player. His brain works that way. If you put a control deck with Cal will probably know how to use it, but he'll get very exasperated very quickly if he's not doing much with it. Rejection, same thing. If you give him an aggro deck, he's a control-oriented player. If you give him an aggro deck, he'll get very exasperated very quickly. So you have to find your niche. Just because you've been trying Sorcerer 10 times and you're going 8-2, it might be that Sorcerer maybe is not for you. So you want to try something else. You always want to have variety. Have at least 5 different decks from 5 different people. So don't have the same 5 decks from the same person. Have 5 different decks from 5 different people and just rotate them every single game. Every 2-3 games, rotate your decks. That way, by the time that you find your niche, you find what you're in, then you can go ahead and go, okay, so I like aggro decks, so let me go with aggro lists. I like mid-range decks, let me go with mid-range lists. I like control deck, let me go be a horrible person to the rest of humanity. So you have to really, like, those are the 3 rules. So you emulate. No, I'm sorry. Rule number 1 is persistence. Rule number 2 is emulation, and rule number 3 is variety. If you stick to those 3 rules, I guarantee you, before you even like are aware of it, in easily 3 days, 3 or 4 days, you can easily reach rank 6. If you're honestly like a slow player and you're just playing this for fun and just casually, in a week, maybe a week and a half, rank 6 is right there. If you get stuck on Serpent, by the way, don't get frustrated. Everybody gets stuck on Serpent. These guys got stuck on Serpent now and then, so it's not that big of a deal. So that's my bit for climbing from rank 12 up to rank 6. Rank 5. I honestly have never reached it. That's not true. I have, but I haven't to these guys. If I don't hit legends, I'm not worthy. But whatever. So Cal is actually going to talk about a little bit more of like what's called the real climbing ranks, which is 5 to legends. Correct?
Yeah, there's something I do want to say first before I get into that. As a note to what you're saying about emulation, like even the niche deck that I work on a lot, that I know how to build, how to play to a high degree, I still go on Legends decks every day or two, search Swindler's Market, and just see what other people are doing to see if there's things that I haven't figured out. Like, just because I'm good at a deck, I know how it works, doesn't mean that you're above taking inspiration from everybody else. Like, you should always be like the tier 1 decks are not tier 1 decks because somebody had a bright idea and now they're the best player in the world. Most like we live in a digital age. All the tier 1 decks are tier 1 because they're crowdfunded. They're constantly being tinkered by everybody else and constantly worked on to become the best version they are. They are nobody's individual decks, apart from possibly Hackney because he's just insane with that Nixos combo. Like, respect the guy. I'm not gonna lie, he's a bit of an idol at the moment. So yeah, as far as sort of climbing through, we were talking about Prophecy Battle Mage is a cheap, aggressive way to attack the format. The 2 examples I want to give are Just a Lazy Gamer, who used Prophecy Battle Mage and hit Legend on day 1 of last season, Reg?
Yes, it was July.
Now, I will repeat that. Day 1 hit Legend with Prophecy Battle Mage, which is one of the cheapest decks in the game. The other guy, who you should definitely check out his stream, he's a lovely guy, is Earlmeister, who hit rank 1 Legend the first week of playing, I believe, with Prophecy Battle Mage. Like, just because it's not a 17,000 soul gem rejection deck doesn't mean that you cannot hit Legend with it. Like, the deck is absurd, and like the guys that play it to rank 1 Legend will happily admit it's not a complex deck. It's very straightforward, and that's exactly what you want as a new player. And you can play that right from the first day of joining the game at rank 12. You can take that deck to Legend with ease, and especially in the early sort of couple of days of the format, everybody's playing aggressive decks. You take a Prophecy aggro deck to that meta, and a lot of the time it will be like a hot knife through butter. Like, I've played a lot of aggro decks. Prophecy Battle Mage is a nightmare to play against. Like, what do? You not hitting them in the face? What's your game plan here? Like, it's insane. But yeah, realistically, like Duke is spot on. If you play consistently, if you take a deck that you won't understand straight off the bat, you will copy it from somebody who you know has worked on it, that it's a streamlined, straightforward list. If you learn that on the job, if you put your time and effort into it, and don't lose your first couple of games and give up for the day, which can happen. Like, I've done it myself. Reg has done it. I've been here when he's gone, oh, let's try this. Oh my god, this is awful, I'm out. Like, you put in the time, you can attain high ranks very, very quickly. And I believe, speaking of high ranks, right?
Okay, so I play weird shit, so I honestly try not to emulate if I can avoid it. However, inspiration is something that's very important. Cal can tell you I have a lot of insane ideas, and I like to put them into action as quickly as possible. No
How many
matter.
Divot fairs did we make the other day?
I made 3 Divith fairs. I had 5 Knockerines another game. So Ram Tavani is my baby right now. I'm working on that. No one else is playing Ram Tavani, as far as I can tell, and I hit rank 17 Legend with it yesterday. However, I will still go on Legends decks, and I will still type in, and I know no one's really playing what I am sometimes, so I have to search by specific cards and see what people are running with combos and whatnot. And that's how some of my favorite decks started. Back when I was getting back into the game last month, I started at rank 9, and I had no clue what was going on. So I decided I love control. I want to get back into this game. So I net decked Michaela's Chanter Tribunal. And I said, I'm going to try to learn this game the hardest way possible by playing Control to Legend. And then I played Chanter Tribunal until I knew what Tribunal was doing. And now I play my own variation of it, of course. But I think net decking can get you to mid-legend, top 300 easy. After that, you're probably going to need to start building your own lists. You're going to start needing to tech your decks. You're going to start needing to really learn the meta. You don't really need to know what your opponents are doing until you hit Legend. You can kind of get away with not understanding lists. You can get away with not knowing what your opponent's game plan is. Once you want to hit high Legend, you kind of need to. You need to know what your opponents are going to be playing. You need to know what their power turns are. You need to know what their threats are, what their win conditions are. And you need to know what is most prevalent so you know how to beat it. Like right now, mid-battle mage is super prevalent. So a lot of hard removal that doesn't rely on damage is going to be very powerful. So for me, what I'll do is I'll tech in a lot of extra removal to any deck I play. So if I'm playing support mage, I put in Odaving just for more mass removal. For my tribunal, sometimes it's just different play styles. Like you will hold your early removal so you can play a Prophecy Javelin or Cast into Time so you can Aaron it back into your hand. So once you get to a certain point, you really need to sit down and understand your deck and make a personal homemade crafted list yourself so you understand the meta and it also fits your play style perfectly so you can feel comfortable with it and also do well with it. Hey, so this section is called Better or Worse. Here we each pick a card that we think got better in the metagame since last week, since this big nerf patch came out, and we after we pick one card that we think got worse based on the meta, and we're trying to avoid these super obvious picks. I think to give a very clear example of what I mean by that, Cal, what do you think got better this week?
So, somewhat controversially, I think post-nerf, Drain Vitality is in... It obviously dropped off originally, but I think it's in a better place this week than it was last week. With the nerf, less people are playing it, and because of this, and sort of the damage to Scout in particular, there are a lot more, as we said earlier, mid Battle Mage, mid Dagoth, these lists that rely quite heavily on wards. So I think that the damage-based removal has got worse, but even without hitting both lanes, I think being able to drain vitality things like Daggerful Mage, Breton Conjurer, these things that get ward crafted are actually put drain vitality in a better place than we thought it was post nerf. As for a card that got worse, I'm going with the same reasoning. There's a lot more wards. It's a lot harder to use damage-based removal to clear lanes. I honestly think this might be one of the worst spots that Ice Storm has been in a very long time, because there's so much of these decks that are going bigger than what we used to. There are a lot of creatures that are warded that are not damaged as easily by mass AoE, so it's much harder to fully lane clear or board clear with Ice Storms at the moment. I think that could change, and I think the idea is that we're going to do this on a weekly basis as the metagame shifts. But as far as this week compared to last week, those would be my picks for what's got better and what's got worse. Duke, what about you?
So for me, my picks are a little bit less in that, because mostly because I feel like there are a lot of things that have not really lost a lot of oomph. But to go into what I think is the best card, because of the Drain Vitality, to jump off of that, because of the Drain Vitality nerf, it opens up a lot of options now for a lot of other cards. There's an easy substitute that's been coming up a lot, and I think we talked about this briefly, is Firestorm. Um, so Firestorm is a good. It basically, quote unquote, does the same thing that Drain Vitality would does. So it's in a good place to be a substitute for it. It's a prophecy, so you can easily use it, um, for free if you're running a prophecy deck. The other thing is, the only difference is that this, if they have ward or any sort of like the combos that you usually do with Drain Vitality, such as like Drain Vitality and then Leaf Lurker, or Drain Vitality and finish off, don't work in. No, they do still work in this one, right? If they do get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do still work in this one. I think the only downside is if they have ward, correct? So
Yeah.
if they have ward, that's the only. So it's not an immediate clear. So I think that's the only downside to it. Otherwise, oh, and the fact that it's also a 4 Magicka card instead of a 1 cost, -2, -2 to everything. So I think that's
I
the
can see where
only
you're coming
thing.
from.
Yeah, prophecy, but I mean the fact that it's a prophecy, you could easily make it a 0 cost. So that's that. I think the one card that got worst, out of everything that I've seen personally, and I'm gonna stick to this because I'm gonna stick to it because I can't think of anything else, to be honest with you, is Halalu Oathman. And the only reason I think Halalu Oathman has lost a lot of his oomph is because of the nerfs to Manor. It's a 4 cost now, so you can't do a lot of the fun stuff with it that you usually could. So it's not the same as like putting down Halalu Oathman and all of a sudden you have 5 creatures on hand, and one of those creatures is buff is buff up +2/+2. I think Halalu as a whole, as an archetype, has lost a lot of momentum because of the nerfs, especially to Manor. But I think the key piece here is Halalu Oathman, and since that combo isn't viable anymore, it's not in the same position as it was before, so it's a little bit worse than it was before the nerfs. So I think that's my better and worse. I know Rejection has a lot to say about a lot of cards. It's going to be a little bit hard for him to pinpoint 2 specific cards, but we're going to give him a try. Rejection, what did you pick?
Okay, so the card that I think is better this week than last week is Ebon Heart. One of my favorite cards in the game. If anybody's seen my support mage list. They already know I'm going to say this because I love that card. But with the nerfs, damage removal and removal in general has just gotten worse. So people are going face more. So having recovery tools is more important than ever. And if you can outrace aggro decks by out healing their damage, if you get 2 Evan Hearts down, you can outrace any deck in the game. Like you suddenly have infinite health. And I think even control decks are starting to hit other control decks in the face because they've stopped caring about removal because there's less and less of it. So heal is crazy important now, and Evan Hearts just amplify that to the nth degree. The card I think that got worse is going to be Dawn's Wrath. Sad but true. With the Drain Vitality nerf, people are splitting lanes more and more now, playing around it. Anytime they see green, they're now splitting lanes. And a lot of the damage removal isn't working, so Dawn's Wrath is becoming more. People are getting more and more used to playing around it. Also, there's a lot of conscription decks and a lot of flood decks that will fill the entire board rather than just one side or the other. Like token decks, I will 100% blame Aini for this. So Dawn's Wrath kills half the board, while the other half of the board just kills you.
And anyhow, so that's how I won with Price Chicken. And you see, what happened was things just took a turn for the worse, is what I'm trying to get at.
Flesh Atronach OTK with Price Chicken.
With Price Chicken, basically. But that could go all so wrong. So,
No. Price Chicken never goes wrong.
Price Chicken is always right. If Price Chicken is wrong, I don't ever want to be right.
You just have to protect it with the Dorian fan. It'll go great.
Every time. Oh my god. I remember going into CVH's stream early on, and always whenever he's like, "Oh, so what car should I add to this deck?" And I was always like, "Price Chicken." I hear Price
Oh, that was
Chicken.
you. I've seen that stream.
Yeah, I was like, "Price Chicken." I was the guy that would always be like, "Price Chicken."
I was wondering who that asshole
Price
was.
Chicken is my thing. I'm the one that was like, "Price Chicken."
Oh, for fuck's sake, man.
So
it's definitely time to wrap this shit up.
so we were gonna talk about worst plays, because we need something to laugh at other than if we're talking about worst plays though, I should just put up a recording of every single game that I play. But I digress.
Some sort of training montage of you trying to rank up.
Do and I'm always in Serpent. It just goes up and down in Serpent.
I've got the eye of the tiger.
And it just goes up and down in Serpent. Stuck in the snack. So yeah.
So
So
you want to tell your awful play first, or shall I?
I'm going last.
Yeah, go. Okay, so Cal, I don't think you can ever do wrong, but go ahead.
Yeah,
So
he almost can.
I have not been playing a lot this week, but what I have been doing is spending a lot of time testing and spectating Reg, and the both of us were doing some voice chat with Eolus, who you met last week. If you're not, you should definitely go and listen to it. And it was Eolus playing, right, Reg?
Yeah, we had no part in this.
And so, we see. What was the card that threw me off?
Hex Mage.
Sorry?
They played a Hex Mage, and I immediately said, Smuggler's Hall.
Yeah, I'm like, well, no, because he played something a turn before. Oh, he was playing House Kinsman, and the last gasp do 3 damage or something.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it going, no, of course not, Reg. Like, there is no way that this is a market deck. Like, there's no way you play any of these. And there I am. I'm going on like, I've played a load of market decks. I know how to play Market Assassin. There's no way this guy is Market Assassin. This guy plays Hex Mage. I'm like, no, it's fine. We're in no danger of getting OTK'd.
Here's a twist.
It's okay. We can just kill it.
Here's a twist.
Sorry?
I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
here's
exactly.
a twist. It's coming.
And so they're like, yeah, okay, we trust you. You play Market. You know what you're talking about. And obviously they untap. Oh, so sorry. They begin their turn and go, oh, look, here's a Market. Here's a Smuggler's Hall. We'll do you for 24 damage. And I defend my position, but Obviously, my read was completely wrong, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I should just be copying some guy who is playing obviously the perfect build of a deck that I've worked a ton on. So fuck my life. Now, Reg, you can embarrass yourself.
So
I'm
on
done.
top of
In the middle
all
of his
that,
fucking sentence, there's no way there's market. We died of market. It's the best.
it's like it plays like a freaking It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, like you start off the episode and you're playing the deck, and then you're like, oh, there's no way they're playing Market, and then like the little title card for the episode is like the gang gets bodied by Market.
Yeah,
Yup,
that's pretty much how it went down.
it
Oh my
was
God.
disgusting. And now for mine, it wasn't a misread. It was just it. And in my defense, I was halfway through my first property when this happened. But still, it's embarrassing. Um, I was playing my baby support mage, and I was just salty and pissed at the game, and I was just trying
Oh,
to,
so your usual self then? Okay, got it.
yeah, just the usual
The
like
usual.
peeved asshole, and um, I'm on 7 mana. I want to make this very clear. I'm on 7 mana. I have charge of the ring left, so I play Aaron, and I have only piercing javelins in the discard pile. So I play Aaron and immediately pop the ring, and I go to play javelin, and javelin costs 4, and I'm just like, wait, I played Aaron in the wrong lane because I thought he had a belligerent giant. I just left the belligerent giant there. I'm like, I'll just jab it. I'll just not jab it. I died to the belligerent giant the next turn.
Not your finest moment.
Are you sad?
No, I Cal said, and I quote, "You are not allowed to be mad at this fucking loss."
Are you still upset to this day?
I'm laughing. But
I mean, that doesn't mean
it's-
much.
Through the tears.
Rejection's the type of guy that will choke you while laughing. So,
you're not wrong.
Can confirm.
yeah. It's not kill stealing, it's skill confirming.
Yeah, Cal's the angry Welshman, so he'll beat the shit out of them, and I'll just make sure they're done.
Me being like the least angry person in this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know how that one's possible.
What do you think? So honestly though, my worst play was so I went on Bethesda.net and I created an account to play Elder Scrolls Legends, and that right there is the worst play I've ever done. Clearly, it's been haunting me ever since.
I mean, you're talking
Well, I mean,
to
like
us, so your life
Yeah, I was
clearly
gonna
is in a
say,
great spot.
that-
I'm surrounded by good people, and I'm just shit.
Wait, if I'm a good person, something is really wrong.
No, I meant in the game. I don't mean like in life. Oh, definitely
yeah,
not.
that's-
No, you guys are definitely like just bastards, both
Yeah.
of you.
Clearly.
So I think so to close off though, I did want to like do a little bit of a little like personal segment here. We've been doing this for what now? Like we've been planning and doing it and going over it, not meticulously as we should be, but we have been doing it for like what? This is the second episode, and we've been in this for what, a month?
less than that, like 2.5 weeks, I think.
Yeah, two and a half, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And every time that I talk to you guys, I learn something new. You guys actually make me want to play the game a lot, and I'm not always around because of life just hits me in the balls sometimes. That happens. But no, man, these two guys, I could never ask for better people to have the podcast with. They're so passionate with it. If I'm not there on time to record, or if I don't have a thought out plan, they start choking me out and yelling at me and making me feel like I'm the worst of the worst. When realistically,
are.
out of all three of us, rejection is probably the worst person ever.
Oh, easily.
Easily, yeah. Oh no, yeah, definitely. He's killed a man,
Can confirm.
Brick killed a man. Yeah, I
I'm
had
not gonna deny it.
I had a trident and I threw it and I killed him. um, so I really am thankful that you guys are here. And listen, rejection, you're hosting, amazing, man. Really good
Aw.
stuff. The other thing I wanted to touch upon, last time we didn't too much go into it, but definitely go on the Discord channel. We're always looking for positive feedback, always looking for just feedback in general. If you
If you
want
have
to be,
negative feedback, you can shove it up your ass.
no, don't. If you have negative feedback, you're more than welcome to send it to me, and I'll just copy and paste everything and send it into Rejection's DM. Just slide into his DMs. No, if you know any feedback, anything you want to talk to us, our Discord is on the info. If you have any questions, if you have any insights, always let us know. If you want to be interviewed, whether you're really really good at what you do in Legends or you're just really really bad and you just want to be in the podcast and say hi, mom, you're more than welcome to do that. Of course, people with actual skill will get more time than people with less skill. I know we let Rejection talk a lot, but that's because he seems to be the most try hard out of the three of us. So that's usually why. That's usually why Kyle also gets like the second slot as to talk, and I get the least amount of time to talk because I am not worthy.
No.
So it's been fun, guys. We have fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously, though, like the community for this game is awesome, and as much as I would like to get as many opinions on what we're doing here as possible, get questions, like requests for things to talk about, that's great. Realistically, I was just in a chat and like the fact that somebody in the community reached out and was like, "We want to do this thing. Do you want to come do this thing with us?" And now we're doing this. This is like really, really cool. Like
Mhm.
regardless of anything else, Duke's idea to do this podcast is just really fucking sweet, man.
Yeah, this really is just an incredible facet of the community, and I would be shocked if this existed in almost any other gaming community, let alone just most normal communities. Like this is just a super cool opportunity, and I'm really happy that I get to be a part of this.
And like we
they're
rag on
very
you, Duke, but
excited.
we do love you.
I
You're our boy.
Well, if I took any, I listen. I'm literally the person who doesn't take anything seriously and should not be taken seriously. So I'm there with you guys. So Rejection, you want to sign us off?
Oh yeah, so this has been Noob Hall. Thank you very much for listening. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to hope to Christ that Duke put the link to our Discord somewhere in the description here.
I
So
always do.
be sure to click on that and come say hi, yell at us for sucking or whatever you're gonna do. It's this community, so you'll probably just say hi. But yeah, I hope something of this was relatively helpful to you. And all in all, I hope you have a fantastic week. Y'all have a good one.
Have a good one,
Peace.
guys. Take care.